Where do you get this idea God doesn't have a son?
Where I get this? Well, because he told me. I believe he told me.
Who?
I believe he told me.
Who?
Allah. I believe Allah.
When did Allah speak to you? Tell you.
Is you find young boys to talk? Why don't you go and talk to Hashim or Mansur? Why did you pick him?
I've seen him talk
Don't
to
bring
Hashim.
Hashim. Don't bring Hashim and bring Shamsi as well.
The best answer he has for Christians' questions is to make people run away. That's the best answer he has.
No problem.
If you need to be certain, you can't depend on one particular person's testimony about himself. If you go to Tesco, buy something, at the till, if they gave you a receipt versus a white sheet of paper, handwritten, are you saying you won't be able to differentiate between them? Is that what you're saying really? Do you remember anything in your first year of your life? And therefore you can't confirm what your belief was in the first year. Obviously you're talking about something which happened later.
Yes.
Much like them.
Something that I learned.
Much like them.
Something that I picked up.
And therefore much like them. Similar to how you later on grew up to being accustomed with this particular belief.
Yes.
They have grown up being accustomed to being an addict, being a stealer, and so on. And therefore that innate inclination doesn't prove anything.
Well, that's not innate. That's something that you develop as you grow up.
Much like your belief. Like you explained, you obviously don't even know what happened in your first year of your life.
No.
And therefore, much like how you are saying they developed that, you also developed your religious beliefs.
Yeah, of course.
And therefore, there's no difference between them both.
Okay, so what would you?
So point would be, when you say you don't think God has a son, you're really making a belief statement, not a statement of truth.
Well, I believe my statement is true. So
Yeah, you can believe that, but you can't explain that it is true. You can only believe that. And that's what we mean when we say belief statement. Yeah.
I believe that.
So obviously, well, let's put it this way. Obviously, any belief statement, the one who holds that considers that to be true, and that's why he holds that.
But can I explain why I don't believe that's son? Because I believe that if you imagine God, something that you can't imagine his size, you can't imagine his looks, anything that you imagine, God is something else. Is basically what I'm trying to say. To then say that he has a son who came down to earth and something that we can look at with our own eyes in the form of a human, again, that's sort of bringing God down to your level. That's sort of, again, associating partners with him.
Here is my problem with that argument. You have essentially contradicted yourself.
How so?
You began by saying you can't imagine, as if he is much beyond you, which I agree with. And then you are concluding something based on what you can imagine, as if you've somehow brought him into your consideration. You can now box him in and clearly say he can't have a son.
No, because
That's a contradiction.
I can't imagine him having a son. That's what my argument.
Neither can you. Exactly my point. No one can imagine God having any particular attribute because we have got limited minds. He is much beyond us, and therefore our imagination is not the imaginations don't help us seek the truth necessarily. And here is where let me go back to a crucial aspect.
So does any belief make sense if we're going to use that word?
Very good point. And that is where I'm going to comment to you. Unlike Islam, which begins with belief statements, I believe this, I believe that, and that's the fundamental thing in Islam. The Old Testament, the Tanakh, the Torah, Injil, Nevi'im and Ketuvim, and the New Testament, those things don't begin with the belief statements. They don't. They begin with.
Like, aren't they things?
Very good question. So let me put it this way. Did God suddenly show up to someone saying, "Oh, you better believe in 10 commandments"? Is that how that began?
Well, I believe that they received revelation, and I believe that
What happened before that?
Happened before that? Well, I don't think the word "before" makes sense when we're talking about God, because I believe God is outside the scope of time.
When
talking about creation.
When obviously he was talking to Israel, he was talking inside of time. He is outside of time also. I agree with that.
So the term "before" doesn't really make sense for me. Because when you say before or after, that doesn't make sense for God, because that's
my point is
time.
This. My point is this, my friend. I agree God is beyond time also.
Okay.
Also is the crucial thing there. But when God speaks to people inside of time, necessarily he is interacting inside of time. And therefore, for that particular interaction, I can still use the term before. But that's a minor point. Please don't argue with that. My crucial point is this: the Mosaic covenant revealed. Did Israel get its first insight of God just there, or did the interaction began much before that?
Well, I believe that there had to be a time where the interaction started.
And the time, the Bible clearly says, where it all began is where there was a burning bush. Moses saw a bush was burning, yet it wasn't consumed.
Okay.
That's not a belief statement. That's a statement of history. It was happening in front of his eyes.
Do you believe it happened?
No. You're using the term belief in a very skewed way. When I say belief statement, I mean something which I trust in without going to the reason of the trust. I just begin by saying, I believe, and I can't give you a reason. That's what I mean by when I say belief statement.
Okay.
So here my point is, in Islam, that's where you begin. You believe God doesn't have a son, but when I asked you for a reason, you can't give. The reason you gave was, you said, I can't imagine God, but I can imagine that He won't have, which is a self-contradicting statement. And therefore, logically sensible, non-self-contradicting reason you can't give for saying God does not have a son.
But that could be applied for anything, because you can say, I can't imagine God, but you can imagine that He is a Trinity.
No. Moses did not imagine a Trinity.
No, I'm talking about your belief.
I did not imagine a Trinity at the start of my life. No. Here is the
I'm not
crucial.
talking about the start of your life, I'm just talking about in general.
Or any stage.
This is the crucial point. If I can give you a quick summary, my dear friend. This is how things happen. For the nation of Israel, for the prophets of the old, for most Christians of today, this is how things begin. At some stage in their lives, they suddenly figure out, this guy who they are speaking to seems to be true.
The people around the prophets.
Yes, for example, Moses,
Okay.
he saw a bush burning, yet it wasn't consumed. So he figured out something was significant. Now, that is not to say he figured out the nature of God. No, not at all. He didn't have a clue about the nature of God. He didn't even know much about about God at all at that stage. All that he knew was a bush was burning, yet it wasn't consumed, which is a statement of truth which he can comprehend with his human mind.
According to your belief.
According to history.
Recorded
This is not a
history.
belief statement, this is a
Recorded
history
history.
statement.
There are many historians that, for example, like are agnostic or atheists, they don't even believe in any.
Can I?
I'm not saying they're speaking the truth, but to say that it actually happened according to history, again, that's sort
Do
of.
you believe in
confined-
Moses?
The prophet?
Yeah.
Was the prophet? Yes.
Yeah. So should we stick to? So I can argue with agnostics and atheists in a slightly different setting. I can argue with them.
Say that it's
There are-
historically true.
well,
can say that
unless you say this is historically true, Moses isn't a prophet. He is not. So, for example, let me ask you something else. When Moses lifted up a rod with an entire nation behind him, and the sea split, and he walked through, did that happen or not?
I believe it happened, but I wouldn't use history. I would use, for example, the Quran or hadith narrations.
I'm not asking you to comment about the Quran. I'm asking you, do you consider this to be true?
Do I consider him raising the staff and the sea splitting,
Yeah.
and then it coming back together when Pharaoh
Yeah.
went through and he meant to? Yeah, I believe that to be true. Yeah.
And therefore, in our discussion, can I please assume we're not going to argue about that? Atheists, agnostics might want to argue, and we have other means of arguing with them. No
Okay.
problem. To establish the historicity, we can. But in our conversation, let's not bother about going into places where we don't differ.
That's
So
fine.
we
I don't
agree.
differ. But can
So-
I just, all right.
Yeah. So my point quickly is this: Moses saw or perceived or observed things which were within the scope of human evaluation, and within that scope, he realized this is supernatural. This is God. No human being could do it. He saw those things within his scope of evaluation.
Yes.
Based on that, he concludes this is God, and then
It's the work of God.
What's that?
It's the work of God.
Which means God is acting there somehow. Based on which he goes and then asks for more information about his own nature, about the nature of the one who is showing up there. He asked him, for example, where do the Jews get the idea that the eternal God's name is Yahweh? Did they sit somewhere and suddenly come up with this idea that he is Yahweh? No. Moses asked him, what is your name? He didn't come up with this idea. With his human limited scope of evaluation, he can't. That's where I say, no. Islam, according to you, the unimaginable you suddenly think it is imaginable and conclude. Whereas in the Bible, what you find is the unimaginable. They won't dare to say they can suddenly imagine that. All that they would say is the unimaginable. They have found an evidence for the unimaginable manifesting within the imaginable, and then inquire of the manifestation for more details. Get to know the details. Stick with that, and that is what we call.
Contradict. How does that contradict what I said?
So, where do you get this idea God doesn't have a son?
Where I get this? Well, because he told me. I believe he told me.
Who?
I believe he told me.
Who?
Allah. I believe Allah.
When did Allah speak to you? Tell you.
I believe he speaks through his messengers.
No, wait. So Allah didn't speak to you.
To me directly? No, he speaks through his messengers and his messengers.
So okay. Let's. So Allah didn't speak to you. Yeah.
Directly? No.
So Allah didn't speak to you.
I didn't hear the voice of
So
it.
question:
If that's what you're asking.
if Allah didn't speak to you, who precisely did He speak to?
He spoke to the prophets and the
Which
prophets.
ones? Which ones?
Well, I'm pretty sure we
The
believe.
prophets of the Bible tell us God has a son. I can give you verse after verse after verse for that.
From Bible, but not from any
Well,
other
prophets of the Bible are in the Bible, so
Yeah,
that's
but
an
they-
obvious point.
You have to give an impartial source.
That's a silly
No, no,
point.
no,
Excuse me,
no.
sir. Can you tell me? Can you give me one name of one non-scientist who doesn't know science who can tell me about science? Can you give me one source? Obviously, only those who know about science can tell us about science.
Sentence, to be very honest.
The
I'm not
point is
scientist
this:
and I can-
obviously, only those who heard God speak can come and tell us what they heard.
Exactly, the
The
prophets.
ones who haven't heard obviously can't come and tell us which they haven't heard, and therefore. The ones who can tell us about the God of the Bible are obviously the prophets of the Bible,
I don't disagree
and
with that.
therefore they would be in the Bible.
They also prophets from the Quran. I can give you lots of references.
We're not talking about the Quran
I
here.
don't disagree with that. I don't disagree
So,
with
question to you is: where do you get the idea that God doesn't have a son? Allah didn't tell you. Who did Allah say that to?
that. I believe he told it to the Prophet Muhammad.
So, in other words, Allah spoke to Muhammad. You think?
Yes.
How do you know that?
I believe because I have very good evidence to, for example, believe that what he brought, which was the Quran, I believe I have very good, and also, and his hadith narrations, I have very good reason to believe that he was a prophet, as I think he came with divine knowledge. And
So now,
I'll
wait,
ask him in a sec.
So you think Allah spoke to Moses because you think
I believe
Allah spoke to
it's mentioned in
Muhammad
the
because
Quran. It's mentioned in the Quran that obviously Allah, obviously.
who gave the Quran?
I believe that the Quran was given by word to Muhammad.
In other words, you're getting testimony of Muhammad to confirm that he is true. That's not a good way of testifying.
Well, how do you get your information then? Do you get your information, like, for example, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John? Is that not testimony? I think that's very hypocritical how you're talking about how testimony can't be reliable, but yet you get all of your information from the writings.
Listen
of
to me
Paul,
carefully,
the Old
please.
Testament.
Listen to me carefully, please. You can't depend on the testimony of a particular person. No, you can actually. But, no, wait, no, let me finish this point. You can't, if you need to be certain, you can't depend on one particular person's testimony about himself. If I told you, I believe in Jesus to be God, and if you ask me, well, who told you? Oh, Jesus told me that. If I told you just that, that would be a problem. What you are saying is you believe in Muhammad, and the proof that you're bringing for that is what Muhammad said,
Yes.
which is essentially self-testimony
But in
alone.
the same way, can I
So-
comment? But in the
Yeah.
same way, you believe that Jesus was X, Y, Z because of what Matthew said that he said. So it's it's the same problem.
Which means Jesus has a Jesus has a testator who is Matthew in this regard. He has another witness who is Mark.
You're talking.
So he has multiple witnesses. Let's put it this way. Compare one question at a time. Please. 1 second. Please. 1 second, please.
Yeah, we have
1
like
second.
over
Please.
100,000
1 second.
Sahaba.
One question at a time.
If you're
Please. So if you compare, one
Yes,
second.
we have
So
witnesses,
compare these two,
but the problem
please.
you're not-
On the one hand, you have Muhammad. His witness is only him, according to you.
And there were like 100,000 Sahaba who were around him who
100,000 Arabs who saw
Mark
that.
with Jesus.
What did the Sahaba saw?
they heard what he
you know about this?
said.
They heard what he said.
Yeah, and
Mark
Mark,
will
Matthew,
live
and John also
Mark
heard
will
what he
live with
said.
Jesus.
And they wrote down what he said. So it's the same thing.
No,
Excuse me, very different.
No,
No,
your
no,
Bible.
let-
No, no, your
let-
Bible
let-
said
let's-
all of them
so
they
if
run
I
away.
came to you
They run away.
and said, you know
Anyone
what,
can be
all of you are my witnesses. If I came here and said, I am the king of the world, you ask me, what witness have we got? I am my witness.
I wouldn't actually ask.
John did.
No, you wouldn't ask. Why wouldn't you ask?
Was John at the cross?
Is John?
That's an obscure question. I'm from
How you know John who wrote John is that John?
Where's your witnesses?
You have to
What power have you
No,
got?
I'm not.
It's something you'd ask. You're saying.
Sorry?
How you know John?
So you'd ask,
who wrote
what power have I
Forget
got?
about the
Yeah, of
Bible.
course.
Because
If you
the
said
Bible-
you
Did you ask the same question to Muhammad?
Let's put the Bible
What
in
power
Testament.
did he have?
Which source you
In
have?
Well, I
history,
believe
was there a man? Was there a man?
Like which
Jesus
one?
of Nazareth
For
that was
example, the
crucified
fact
You
and
know I
and
believe
Pontius
that.
Pilate?
You know I believe
Where is that?
You know I believe
Yes
Jesus
or
is
no?
that person existed.
Yes or no?
But I think it's also detailed, I think in the Quran as well. For example,
So-
I'll tell you what happened. He basically,
You know I
fired
believe, you know I'm a
him,
Muslim
basically
and I
asked him
believe
for
in
evidence,
history.
and he told him to
You
look.
know I
Told him
believe
to look
Jesus,
at
but
the moon.
crucified
He didn't
that,
actually
believe
split
that.
the moon. Allah did it for
I
him,
said
but he knew it was
already.
going to happen, and that's the miracle. He knew
No,
it.
where is that? Where did you get the information from?
I believe I get it from hadith.
When was that written?
History contradicts you
written?
and the Quran.
Well, it was written
History
in the time
contradicts
of
you
Prophet,
and
and it was
the Quran.
narrated.
No, when was it written?
compiled.
When was it written?
Any historian will tell you witness.
Al-Bukhari, when was that written?
No, when it was compiled. When it was
Hold on.
They didn't have a clue,
He
small evidence.
Hadith source.
About
Have you
the
got a
crucifixion of
hadith
Jesus.
source
The
from
witnesses-
someone who was a witness of what
The
Muhammad did?
witnesses of
Yeah, they
Jesus,
changed the narration. Got
they
all the
said
way
they
to
ran
the
away.
Sahaba. Of course we did.
Who wrote Sahih
Or
al-Bukhari?
Muhammad
Who
received
wrote
a
that?
revelation. Show me
Well,
one witness.
he didn't write
Okay.
it, he compiled it.
Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he received
He wrote it.
No, he compiled it. He compiled it.
My dear friend, he wrote it. Whether he compiled
He
information.
compiled it. He didn't make it up from his mind.
Let-
copy the notes of your
So many Christians make this argument, and I've seen this 1,000 times. Hold on, I just want to explain something. A lot of people say just because Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim or any other Sunan Abu Dawud, or they were compiled, this is my words, because they were compiled
you will show
a
me
century or two or
historical
centuries
evidence
after,
Jesus is
you're
God.
basically presupposing that they didn't exist
Yeah.
beforehand.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I just used the
with a
term.
topic. A topic.
I
I'm telling you about
I just was saying
eyewitnesses.
whether
Now,
whether he had sources before him or not. Let's discuss.
now is a big.
But regardless of whether he had sources before him or not, he was writing it himself. It's part of the compilation process. He was writing it. He was writing it. Yeah, Bukhari.
Yeah, it was
Bukhari was writing it. There are two fundamental problems. You claim he was compiling, which means the sets of the information that he was using pre-existed before the time of Bukhari. It pre-existed.
The first revelation from
Do you have any evidence for that?
I believe that there are.
Now, don't tell me beliefs. Do you have any evidence for that?
Okay, fine. Let me ask that question directly. We have.
You remember me?
Oh yeah. Later. Yeah.
We have, for example, what's called a chain of narration, which you don't have, by the way, of how you don't actually. You don't. I'm going to make this point after I explain how Imam Bukhari got it from his teacher.
Who?
Got it from his teacher. Well, I don't. He had many
What is the
teachers. Yeah, he had
evidence
five.
for what
He had
you're
five.
saying?
We have many teachers. Many teachers.
What?
If you want to ask me a particular chain for a particular hadith, I have Sahih Muslim in my bag. I can give you the
So let's put it this way. Yeah. Let's put.
You want me to get it out?
No. Let's put it this
I'll
way.
get it out. You asked for it.
Let me just say one thing. Yeah.
Can you please? Can I
Let me
please?
just one. I'm yeah, let me just. The thing is, we cannot verify Bible. We cannot verify Quran.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
sir.
listen,
Do you know about the Bible or not?
Let me.
But don't say things which are not
No,
going
no,
to be
no.
useful for us.
Because-
Do you know about the Bible or not?
My friend, let me finish my statement and then.
For example, I'll
say
give
what
a
I
book
want,
out.
okay?
There are
We
chains
cannot
of narration
verify
detailed in
Bible.
the
You cannot.
in the hadith narration which are
Let me
compiled by
finish
Imam
this
Muslim.
statement and
Don't
then-
include me. Please.
Jump in when
Describe
I
how he
end.
got it from his
Okay?
teacher, who got it from his teacher, who then got it from a Sahaba, who obviously lived at the time of the
Sorry,
Prophet.
he wants to make. Yeah.
We cannot verify Bible historically. We cannot verify Quran. Again, I'm including myself as well, okay? Historically, we cannot verify Quran as well. We have the final product, right? We have the final product Bible. We have a final product Quran. We can look at these final products, not the process or at how they were collected. We can look at the end product. You can look at the end products as whether there's scientific proof, whether it's historically correct. So you can judge both books on scientific basis, on historical basis, on linguistic basis, and then you can come to the conclusion which is the truth, rather than sticking or rather than holding yourself back
So
into
Colonel,
the
can I
history
just
of compilation.
Can I just make my point and then
So just to quickly give you a response to that, and I really wanted to go to the common flow, please. The quick response is, you seem to treat the Quran similar to the Bible in terms of historical artifacts. I disagree with that.
No, I don't.
No.
History-
You said
history
we
is written by
can't
the
verify
victim.
here, we can't verify
Come-
there.
I
My
was-
quick response to that is, that to me tells me that you do not know the historical backdrop for the literature called the New Testament. And it is possible you might not even know that for the Quran.
Okay.
And therefore you seem to compare them both.
I don't about the Bible.
And
Let me
therefore,
confess that. Let me confess that.
and therefore,
then-
it's not an intelligent statement
no,
for
no.
you to stand here and say we can't
The thing is-
compare.
the thing
Excuse me,
is-
sir. One second.
I don't
I waited for you. Yeah. When you confess readily, which is very good, at least you have the honesty to confess that you don't know about the Bible, the historical background for the New Testament. At least I'm glad that you're confessing. But the point is, when you say you don't know, can I please comment to you, do not make value judgments, because that's exactly what you did when you said this is similar to the Quran. Please don't do that.
I'm judging the historical process. We have the end product.
Do you know-
We can rationally look at the end product, my friend.
Okay,
So
that-
look
that
at the-
also we
Let
could
me
do.
make my point. Let me make my point. I'm gonna make my point, and I'm gonna basically the classical method of what we call chains of narration is basically how, for example, Imam Bukhari or Imam Muslim or anyone. I even have Imam Muslim's Volume 1 in my bag, and there are some chains of narration details. If you want me to put it out, I can put it out. Right? How he gets it from his teacher, who basically gets from his teacher, who basically got it from a Sahaba who lived at the time of the Prophet. We have over
But in what
100,000.
way is that chain of narration passed down to purely oral? So how can you verify it?
Because, for
Because you
example,
could have just put those names down to,
but then
to
again,
guess that.
you could say about you could say the same about the
No,
New
no,
we
no, no,
can't.
no.
There's a
That's
difference.
exactly the point. So exactly what Brother Ray was saying there, which is you were saying. One second. You are saying Sahih al-Bukhari had a chain going before him, and the proof for the chain is that you have a list of names. Only a list of
and
names.
historical documents.
In what documents have you got those names?
Can I?
Yeah, please take whatever you
For
want to take.
example, this is-
I'd like to see the chain. Go through the timeline in terms of the actual documents you're going to show.
Okay, fine. I'll show you, right? This will hold on. I'll make my point about. I'll make my point about the New Testament in a second, right? But this is volume 1 of Sahih Muslim. This isn't Bukhari, but this will answer the same question.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay, fine. For example, this is an English translation.
Yeah.
This is volume 1. There's like more than 10 volumes.
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, if you look here, it is narrated on the authority of Abu Hurairah, who was a Sahaba, one of the greatest Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And then and then there's another one here. It's narrated on the authority of Ibn Abbas, which is also the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, if we look at these chains, these are Sahaba, by the way, these people who lived at the time of the Prophet. Now, I'm going to make my point about Can I make my point about the New Testament, right?
Oh no, stick to finish this point.
You haven't made that
No,
point.
you haven't finished the point
I have
there.
finished it.
You just made
No,
names.
wait a
quoted
second.
names.
Your point is exactly what Ray was trying to deal with earlier, which is you are just giving one piece of literature, which comes centuries after Muhammad.
No, it
One
was
second, let me finish.
In terms of when it
Let
was
me
published.
finish.
When it was published.
Sahih
Compiled.
When?
Put together.
This information was not new. This information was not new.
My dear friend.
To the
My
Sahaba.
dear friend, let's
all of this stuff.
My dear friend, shall
So where is the evidence of that?
Precisely.
prior
Where
stuff?
is the evidence of the claim that this is not new? There are things which predate this, from which you have these contents. Where is the evidence for the predating? Have you got one second? No, one second. Let you. One second.
That doesn't prove
Have you
anything. Doesn't prove
have you
anything.
got any evidence going before the time of Sahih Muslim, Sahih al-Bukhari, which actually, let's say Bukhari came a couple of hundred years later after Muhammad? Can you show me a document, for example? Which goes 50 years before him, and then another document 50 years before that, giving details of these transmission of data? Do you have those things?
Absolutely.
We have biographies. Biographies of the people.
Serious.
Have you got them? Is the question.
Yeah, we do have them.
Where?
For example, we have.
Where?
There's around 15,000 biographies of some of these Sahaba.
No, I'm not asking you if there are other seeras, other hadiths and so on. That's not the question. The question
but
is,
these were the
have
people
you
who-
got anything going before this from which you can say
Like I said.
this thing has derived data.
Like I said,
Yeah.
there's a detail in here.
So,
Talks
in
about-
other words, one second.
Can I make my point? Because you seem to be. I want to make this point, and I want to talk about the New Testament because you don't really want to seem to go in that area right now. I'm just going to make this point. You can come back, right?
Once you make the point, I'd like to deal with it. Yeah.
But fine. But can I also make my other point about the New Testament because he brought that up?
Which
you brought
we
that up.
could after we finish this piece. Absolutely. I'm here all day. And God strengthening. We're here. We're here for many hours.
So fine, but can I make that point afterwards? as well? Because-
No, let's not confuse them both.
thing
I'm
at a
not,
time.
because I think we should compare both of them because you're just
Yeah, okay.
opening the door to
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. But then we'll. Yeah, cool. Go on.
So my point was this. If you look in a lot of these chains, so for example, there's one narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, and for example, Aisha narrated and Hisham narrated one hadith translated by Ibn Numayr with some chain of transmitters, so 286 R2. This is basically the name of the chain, okay?
So, my only point there, can I please
No, I'm not done yet, I'm not done yet.
Yeah, okay. But if you please keep that open because I wanted to make a point reading that text. Yeah, go on.
Yes. So what this shows is that this was passed down from the Sahaba or the wives of the Prophet who were there when he walked, and they spoke with him, lived with him, heard his teachings, saw his actions, who were basically the students, the tabi'un, the students of the Sahaba, and the students of the students, passed down from them. And this was around the time of Imam Bukhari where this information is compiled, the things which his teachers told him, can be traced back to Sahaba, which, like I said, there are all these chains there. Through these chains, so for example...
But in what method of that chain? Is that chain a document that is so many hundred years before this, which is physically something you can look at
Well, if chains
to
of
validate
narration,
it?
If chains of narration don't satisfy you, right, and I'm going to make this point because I think I've already made my point. Right, if chains
Haven't.
of,
I'd like
I've
to
already
really,
given my chain
I'd
of
really,
narration.
no, I'd really like to give a response to this.
Fine, you
please.
can give your response.
Yeah, can I please?
But no, not yet, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Let me make my
Yeah,
point.
go on.
Right. So if chains of narration are not satisfactory for you because you weren't sitting there looking at it happen, then how can you become intellectually satisfied that the New Testament comes from any of these 5 authors, that they spoke to Jesus, ate with Jesus, did anything, right? For example, Paul. Paul came way later. He had a vision. How long later? 60, maybe 60, like no, decades later. He didn't see Jesus. He didn't see Jesus. He didn't see him. It's
yeah, go
self-proclaimed that he saw him on the road to Damascus, but again, that's a self-proclaimed apostle. Okay, so I'm asking, if chains of narration don't satisfy you, how are you intellectually satisfied? Because I actually want to know. How are you intellectually satisfied that, for example, the New Testament can be traced back to Jesus?
Good. So can I please respond to this Sahih Muslim? So I'll give you a simple example. Yeah, I can take a paper right now and say, what's the time now? 2:30. So I can say 3:30. Okay, 3:15. I can take a paper now, and on the paper I can write, Arul is here in Hyde Park at 3:15. In the same paper, without spending much effort, I could also take the previous line and say he was at 2:30 in Manchester, and half an hour before that he was in Glasgow. Doesn't take much effort for me to write that chain on a paper, on a single paper, on a single source. Now, compare that against another thing which I tell you, which is contrary to showing you a single paper where I have those 4 lines written, I now show you, let's say, a receipt of, let's say, buying coffee using my card, bank card, in a cafe in Glasgow at about 2 hours before now, if I showed you that. Okay. And then from a time point which is, let's say, half an hour after that, I show you another receipt using the same bank card where I get coffee from a cafe which is in, let's say, which is the other place I use? Manchester. And then after half an hour, I show, for the time after half an hour, I show you another receipt, getting coffee from Hyde Park here, or I can, of course, I'm showing up here speaking to you. Do you not see there is a difference between those 3, ignoring the fact that, of course, in half an hour, in 1 hour, I can't go all the way to Glasgow. That was just an example. Yeah? So, do you not see the difference between showing one paper where I've written all those 3 statements versus showing 3 receipts which distinctly identifies, as long as you can verify the
And could be
veracity.
date stamped. Could be date stamped.
As long as you can,
Can you just
do you not see the difference?
No, there are ways. There are ways.
One second. Do you you not see the difference between them or not?
Okay, I asked. Yeah, I do see the difference. Okay, I asked the question. I didn't really get an answer.
No, I know.
If that doesn't
Where is
say-
it? We'll go to the Bible.
If chains don't satisfy you, then how are you intellectually satisfied that the New Testament comes from you?
I'm going to certainly deal with the New Testament. We are going to. But prior to that, please let me know, are these two similar? Can you forge information in the first case? Can you do that or not? Whereas in the second one, it's much harder. Do you appreciate that or not?
It's not. It's not
One
logically.
second, I'm asking.
If you're asking, is it logically impossible? No, it's not
No,
logical.
that's not the question. The
yeah,
question is, can you forge a single paper where I write with my hands? A couple of hours earlier, I was in Glasgow. An hour later, I was in Manchester. An hour later, here I am. A paper like that versus showing you 3 separate receipts.
And maybe with pictures of your face as well.
Yeah, so some way where you can verify those receipts
to
are
illustrate
actually
the point.
authentic receipts from cafes which are really in Glasgow, Manchester, and here in London. I can show you that. Do you not see the difference between those two?
One is a weak evidence and one is a
And
strong
which one would you
evidence.
trust more? Which one would you trust more?
Wait. What was the first one again?
First one is just I have one paper where I am writing with my own handwriting. Just one paper where I say 2 hours earlier I was in Glasgow, 1 hour earlier I was in Manchester, now I am in London. Just one paper where I have written with my own hands. That's what I've written. Versus I'm showing you receipts of getting coffees in cafes in those different cities with timestamps using my bank card details with the on the receipts, which you can verify if you wanted to. Do you not
What
see the
would you
difference?
prefer?
I see the difference between the two. So basically, what you're saying is, one paper, all the details written down. 3 papers, 1 detail written at a time.
No, 3 receipts, historical documents which are dated to 3 different points in time.
So the original document at the time it happened.
that has to do with
Not recording later on.
If you don't know, please wait, sir. He knows what he's talking about. Please wait and listen. Thank you. So, do you see the difference between those two? Yeah, better still, take a video. That's better. But I'm giving a simple example. But I'm giving a simple example. Do you see the difference?
There's a difference. Of course there is.
Now, if I ask you another question also, one second. Can I ask you another question also? In the first example, is it possible for me to forge that document?
You don't know.
Excuse me, sir.
Has the
Can I-
Bible?
So,
No, listen, no. You disturb a lot of
question is,
hold on.
in the can you please?
Hey, your wife is calling you. Your wife is calling
Christian doesn't rule
you.
here.
Your wife is calling
Christian doesn't
you.
rule here. This is the speaker's corner. Brother, let me ask one question.
You're making it disturbance.
No, you make it many times.
Now, question.
You don't rule here. This is
So
the
you
speaker's
said
corner.
obviously
We
you
have to
prefer the
speak.
second example.
Brother, you don't rule here.
I
Speaker's
just said
corner.
there's a difference. I never
No.
There is a difference. Do you prefer one over another as a better evidence? Do you prefer one over another as a better evidence?
It depends who wrote it.
Well, assuming you can establish the veracity of the timestamps with my bank card details, yeah, of course you need to do a bit of background, let's say evaluation. Of course you need to establish veracity, but as long as you can date it to different points in time, 3 different documents.
Okay.
Would you prefer that over the one little page where I have written with my own hands all 3 statements which I am claiming
say
about
something.
myself?
Let me
Okay,
put it another way.
Let me put it another way. My answer was it depends who wrote them.
Let me put it another way.
Assuming.
Let me put it this way. If you went into a court of law, and you had to prove something to the judge is going to look at both those examples. What did you think the judge is going to be more happier with? You just writing it down on one single piece of paper, or you having...
Brother, they're using you.
Just to
Brother,
make this.
listen to this. They're using you, recording this.
I know.
If you don't have knowledge, you got knowledge. Alhamdulillah.
He has a brain. And
Brother, listen to me. They're using you to go and say Islam is this, Islam is that. Listen to this.
What is this guy saying? I don't know what he's talking about. Do you have a knowledge? Do you have a knowledge of the city called Glasgow? Do you have a knowledge of the city called Manchester? So you're not
The
talking
benchmark
about.
they're putting for my Quran have the same benchmark for the Bible.
Okay, fine. Can I just...
Question is,
the Bible.
Please respond to what my brother was
let me
saying.
Why Christian? Why? Aaron, you don't rule here. This is not a Christian.
You're not allowed to
You are talking, he's talking. Why come down?
You are disturbing the conversation
You
now.
are talking.
We're waiting for
This guy makes you
Interrupting the combo. Go away, bro. Your wife is calling you.
explaining something to you.
It is not a Christian man. He is a speaker's corner. We are allowed to
Don't
talk.
twist. It's not
He's doing fine, bro.
We
He's
can
doing fine.
talk.
Please tell him.
I'm trying to help this brother explain himself.
One, answer to their question. Listen to this. Ask him. The benchmark.
I will apologize on your behalf for your brothers here.
Allow.
Not allowed.
For the Bible.
Absolutely same benchmark.
Tell me who wrote the
Absolutely the same one. We'll deal with that.
Tell me who wrote Gospel of Mark.
But let me explain the same benchmark. Stay quiet for some time, please. Thank
Who wrote
you.
Gospel of Mark?
Alright? I've given you my answer. You asked me the question. Would I have one paper have all the actions jotted down, all the historical events that took place, all jotted down on one paper, right? Or would I trust 3 or multiple papers just with one historical event at a time?
What Christian? What are you?
My answer.
That's not the detail we gave. We are also saying, in our hypothetical example, we are also saying you can validate that those 3 separate papers come from a source.
Your God said that. Your God said that.
Those 3 separate.
Your God impregnated his mother. Your God impregnated his mother. Your God impregnated his mother. And your God, let's go. Have a muta there. Yes. Your God impregnated his mother.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
So what we are saying.
Can I answer that question? All right. It's 3 receipts. But when you say receipt, you're talking about a very specific definition of a paper, which can also be forged.
Yeah.
So my answer to that question was a very direct one. It depends who.
Fair point.
Okay.
But
so
if you've done the due diligence,
can I ask a question?
No, we haven't finished with this example. No, the example is crystal clear. You really don't want to deal with the details if you escape it.
I've said.
Let's deal with the details now.
I was talking to you.
My friend, my brother here, myself, we are going to be here for hours, God strengthening. My brother here and myself, we are going to be here for hours, and therefore we would certainly respond to your comments about the Bible. No problem at all.
we promised to do that.
We are going to be here, God
1, 2, 3, 4.
Therefore, we really
1,
like
2,
to.
3, 4. For
We
Christian.
really like to.
For Christian.
We really like to.
What are you doing here?
We
What are you
really.
doing here?
Now, he is counting only the thinking people. No Christians who can think. Only one Muslim who can think. That's the problem
That's
here.
what they think the rule is.
That's his counting methodology. Now,
That's in the rule here. This is speaker's corner. Not, it's not a
Sorry, mate. I'm having trouble hearing you because of him.
corner.
he asked you to quiet down. Calm down.
You don't teach me. Aaron, you have double standard. You have double standard. Carry on. Carry on.
I know, I'm going to.
Your God is slept with his mother. Your God slept with his mother. Incest.
Say something or don't say anything, man. No one wants your attitude around here. Seriously.
You're incest.
No, that's a very good
You're a
point.
son of incest.
So
You're a
question.
son of incest. That's why you're heading.
So
According to your God, your
What's
God,
your name?
your God, slept with his
Ibrahim,
mother.
that's very good. So, we are, in the hypothetical example we are giving, we are also saying, just to make things simple, we are saying that you can validate the fact that these receipts are really authentic receipts. You can validate them. And when I say validate, you can validate the detail of where it was obtained from, in the Glasgow, Manchester and London.
And the date stamp.
The time, date and time, and the card that has been used, which is, let's say, one of our cards. You can validate all of them. Yeah, so let's say you can validate,
And similarly, we have biographies.
No, let's go to the similar case later. But stick to this example, please, for now. If you can validate, you have one paper.
No problem.
One paper, not a receipt, just one paper where I am writing, I was here 3 hours earlier, I was here 2 hours earlier, and so on, versus these 3 separate receipts.
How do you separate a mere paper from an authenticated receipt that can be trusted from 1,000 years ago? I'm going to ask you.
No, stick to the simple example. Let's finish this off, and then we'll see. We'll explain.
Because we can't really progress.
We'll explain. No, we can. obviously we are different in our conclusions, and that's where we're trying to get to some more details. Try and see where we differ for Ibrahim. So we're trying to see if we can, at least when provided more details, if we can agree on these things. Yeah?
Okay, I
So
understand.
question,
I understand.
stick just to this example, please. Which one would you prefer as more reliable thing to judge that I was 3 hours earlier in Glasgow, slightly later in Manchester, and now in London? Which one would you prefer?
Again, I don't mean to be come across as rude, but I've answered this about 5 times. It depends who wrote them.
Assuming you can verify, which I mentioned to you multiple times, therefore please move on.
Well, if they're both
Assuming
verified,
you can
if they're both verified, then they're both the if they're both
no,
verified.
stick to this details.
Well, here's
please.
where there's a
this
problem.
Can, once,
Can I just say this one
How
thing?
many Christians talking?
this one second. Let me
How
just
many
finish
Christians
this,
talking?
yeah.
Stand by your own margin. Why you're
The
recording?
verification, my dear friend, the verification is the 3 different papers.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine.
Three to one.
Not really.
That's fine.
We're being respectful. We're being respectful.
It's fine. It's fine.
What's your problem now? Are you his guardian?
Arul, you don't dictate here. You don't dictate
you please move
here.
on?
This is the speaker's corner. We can intervene whenever we like.
No, you
You
can't.
don't dictate here.
Is he happy
You are
with
not
that?
doing that.
Is he happy with that?
This is the speaker's
Is he
corner.
happy with
It
that?
doesn't matter.
That's
This
what
is,
we're talking
we are
about.
talking about
Very
Islam,
good.
our religion. We will intervene. We will discuss
Okay.
whatever we like.
Okay.
It does.
We can have a separate discussion later.
You don't-
So what you can verify
I'm not saying I
is
do.
that one of
I'm
them
not
is
saying
just
no.
a plain
You're not respecting
paper.
him.
I am respecting.
That's my problem.
What you can verify is that one of them is just a plain paper on which someone with his own hands have written 3 statements.
Okay.
Just a plain paper, nothing to do with
Ask him.
timestamps,
The question is
nothing
asking.
to do with location, just a list of the city names using his own hand. No verification that you can connect that to that city. Yeah. On the other hand, you have 3 receipts where you can connect them to the appropriate cities and appropriate times and appropriate bank details. You can verify these 2 particular details. Which one would you prefer?
He's your
Again,
uncle.
so you're basically
Respect your
asking
uncle.
the question. I'm really trying to understand because how do you differentiate a mere paper from a, for example, verified receipts in your own words?
Are you saying you don't know the difference between?
I'm
If you go
asking
to
how
Tesco,
would you?
No, I'm asking
differentiate?
exactly in the way. So if you go to Tesco, buy something at the till, if they gave you a receipt versus a white sheet of paper, handwritten, are you saying you won't be able to differentiate between them? Is that what you're saying, really?
I'm not saying I wouldn't be able to differentiate between them. I'm saying how do you differentiate between them?
I would differentiate in the commonsensical way,
Which is?
of I know the difference between what a receipt is when I go to a restaurant versus what a white blank sheet of paper on which handwritten text is.
Of course,
Can
there
you
is
not
more
differentiate them?
Okay,
both?
fine. But what? Let's say 1,400 years ago.
No,
or
stick to
2,000
just
years
this
ago.
example, please. Please just stick to this example. Which one would you prefer? Why?
Brother, he is asking you.
why
His
interrupt
question
me?
is preloaded.
Why
Do you
interrupt
understand?
me? See,
By-
you're the first
It's a
one.
preloaded
It
question.
is true. Now we are questioning you.
No.
No, hold on.
No.
After, let's say, 10
You
minutes,
are
you
giving
can
the
question us.
explanation.
In regards to
Brother,
the Bible, you
listen,
can question
brother,
us.
you got a good intention.
We would be trying to
Yes, I-
defend,
listen,
and you would be questioning.
Brother, listen
In
to
regards
this.
to the Bible.
This is a
But in
preloaded
regards-
question.
I know.
It's a preloaded question. Ask him. The question is asking.
Just tell him you can think. Please
No.
just tell him. If
No,
you
as a
can
brother, I can
I
intervene.
understand what you're saying.
Yes.
I understand what you're saying, but I will ask him.
Yeah,
I promise
ask
I
him.
will ask him.
Ask
I will
him.
ask him.
Ask
You hear
him.
that, yeah?
Of course.
Yeah, you see
I respect that.
So yeah, you see the difference between what we are talking about in both cases. Which one would you prefer and why?
Again, if I saw, like, okay, hold on. If I went to Tesco's, for example,
Yeah.
or went to a shop,
Yeah.
and I saw the receipt printed, and it got handed over to me. That's the receipt I could trust because it's from the store, it got printed out of their machine, whatever. However, if you come to me with a piece of paper
Yeah.
that is handwritten on a pencil and a piece of paper that has the receipt sort of fashion, I know you might like for my answer, but I can't distinguish between
And
the two.
that is
because
where we
receipts can be
simplified.
forged.
And that is where we simplified the example where we said that you can validate the claims. I.e., for example, you can bring up the number and say, "Oh, did this using this card? Did someone get coffee from you at such and such time in Glasgow?" You can ask.
Like you can ring the bank
Brother,
up and
no,
they
So
can
in other words,
validate.
we are saying we are
brother,
really making the
But
example
this is
simple.
illogical. Listen to this.
This
Up to
is-
90s, people were giving cash in hand, doing the receipt in hand, it was validated by HMRC, it was valid by them. Because the technology has changed, the new receipt is coming. It doesn't mean that the old receipt, old methods is
He's talking
invalid.
about a different example.
No, brother, this
Stick
is
to
the
our
same
example,
logic.
please.
This is
What
the
do you
same
think?
logic.
Assume you can validate. That's an assumption.
How though?
Which
when you say validate, you need to really describe how, because this
How?
is what it depends.
Yes, absolutely.
How would you validate?
Let's put it this way, simply, yeah, Ibrahim.
Because this
They're
applies
all-
to both you and me. If we're going to validate something,
Ibrahim,
what
all
is
that I am
validate?
saying is,
Why?
all
Didn't
that
you
I
like
am
my
saying
answer?
is, in your mind, come up
The
with
answer
the
I
idea
gave
of
you.
what you would need to validate a receipt.
Didn't you
from
like my
a
answer?
cafe.
Why not?
Assume what you need,
Fine.
and
Can I give
assume
you
that
one
is given to you.
Okay, fine.
Yes. Versus a
You're
paper,
a son
white
of
sheet of
incest.
paper, handwritten,
That's the
three
fact.
statements. Which
You're
one
a
would
son
you
of
prefer?
incest. You got a grey hair, black
I see your
skin.
question.
There's
Let
a
me
difference
answer
between
your
your
question. It might seem indirect, but we'll answer your
It's
question.
not a trick question. It's a very straightforward question.
I've already answered it. Arul, with all
You
due
have
respect, I've
answered it, ignoring the details which we are giving you.
No, I've answered it directly. I don't think you understood what I
Now,
was saying.
Ibrahim, let me answer that for you, please. If I were in your place, and if I were true
And you
in
are
saying I'm
dispossessed by
looking for the
shaitan.
truth, not
For a
for belief
Muslim.
statements, I would be crystal clear,
You're God.
even if
You're
it is
God.
concerning the Bible, I would be crystal clear in saying, oh, are you giving me three receipts which I can connect to three different places, three different points in time, using the same bank card, using details which I can verify by ringing them up or whatever, to a level which is satisfactory to me, versus looking at a blank sheet of paper, handwritten three statements, I would say I'll go with the receipts any day of the year. That's what I would say. And that's a sensible thing to do, I think. Now, you are trying to argue against it for whatever reason, I don't
I'm just saying it
know.
depends who
Well,
did them, because it can be false.
I am telling you
I
that
think
you
I
assume you can verify, in
How?
which means,
How?
in what I am trying to give you, I am trying to simplify the example.
What's the name of your
However
channel?
way you would like to
Can I
verify.
say however?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so for example, if we're talking about the example of the chains of narration,
No. Stick to this example we were
no,
giving.
but we're going to come round to that.
No. Once we settle this, it seems like in a simple case we can't come to an agreement, and therefore I don't have a reason to think in a complicated case you'll agree rather soon. Please stick to it.
No, I don't.
Simple case.
No, I think
Brother,
we're trying
you're
to.
getting beyond point. What's the subject?
Okay,
The subject is something which requires you to think,
Tell me.
evaluate,
Tell me.
and respond. Obviously, you were here for 7 to 10 minutes, yet haven't understood, which means you haven't cared
No,
to
because you
listen,
didn't repeat
understand.
that topic.
Hold on.
Why don't you repeat yourself so we can understand?
7 minutes when I say many things, when he says many things, when he says many things, if you can't understand,
No, because
why
you're-
should I think if I repeat you would
you're pestering the
understand?
same point. I gave you the answer. To
You never gave
authenticate,
me any
I gave
answer.
you. I gave you the answer. I gave you the answer. Brother, listen. This guy is a preloaded question. He has an idea, and he wants you to fall into that idea. You understand?
He has a brain, he won't fall into
Nothing
anything
with the
which is
brain,
nonsensical.
because you are a missionary. I know your tactics very well. You have preloaded question.
So you are a Muslim and therefore you
We
can't
are not a
think.
missionary.
Is that what you're
We are
saying?
not a paid worker.
Are you saying
We
you are a
not paid
Muslim
worker.
and therefore you
We
can't
came-
think? Is that what you're
Are you a
saying?
missionary?
I am.
Are you a paid worker? Do you paid by the church? Do you
No,
get paid?
I'm not.
God, what is the Bible? Can you touch the Bible and you say don't get paid for it? Your expression.
What do you mean?
Can you touch any of
Why
Bible?
should I do that to you?
Because you lie. I know you get paid for it.
If you know, why do you
Why are you
lie?
lying? Why are you lying then? You're a
If you
paid
know
worker.
that I'm lying,
Why are you lying?
Oh, now I know his All right, thank you, sir.
You're are you a liar?
Sir, you haven't paid me enough this
Are
week.
you a liar?
Come back later.
Are you a liar?
Pay me the
No,
remaining 10 pounds.
Are you
I'll
a
listen
liar?
to you now.
Are
Go
you a
on.
liar? Brother, no point. Brother,
is a satanic verses according to Muhammad.
Good. His point is Muslims can't think,
You're a
and therefore
liar.
he doesn't want you to engage. If
He's
you
a-
think
he's a
Muslims
paid
can think,
worker.
which I think is the
They
case,
rob the building.
please stick to that.
He gets paid. He gets paid. They're the paid worker. We came.
Are you paying
Our
them?
own
Are you
will.
paying them?
We came.
Are you paying them?
We don't. We don't.
Come round to the point of the
Brother,
hadith narration authenticity, which I know we're going to do. I'm going to give my example now
He
so that
lied.
you understand it.
I know that he
No,
lied.
no. Apply the logic which we have used. Can you please take the hadith which you
Can
read
you
earlier?
can you clarify?
Yeah,
Do you get paid
Aisha
for your work
saying
here?
something.
Okay, fine. It's 286 chains.
So if you take
Can you
that,
clarify? You get paid for this?
so we
Service you do
just
here?
add one more point to that. So essentially,
Can you clarify? You get paid for this?
not for you, sir.
No, not for me.
I
The
can't
service you do
clarify.
here.
But I want to. Okay, fine.
Can I
I'll-
please,
I'll-
yeah,
Yes, sure. You can read it, right? Yeah. But I just want to give an example.
Yeah, that's fine. If you just take one example, that's fine.
No, this was the one after.
Missionaries.
So yeah.
They're well paid. They look up. He doesn't. I know that.
Can I please?
But take it.
So, in other words, if I read this example, what does this example look like? The first example we gave of a white sheet of paper with handwritten text, 3 different statements versus 3 different receipts which you can connect to 3 different places. Let's see which one this matches with. Yeah.
Tell me the truth.
But one particular book,
Does Allah pay them?
yeah, one particular book dating from a couple of centuries after Muhammad, one particular book reads this way. Reads this way.
They want to win.
Aisha, the wife of the apostle. So who is talking about Aisha? Him. Not a different source, not the 3 different sources, just that one source,
No,
one
but you guys
paper.
are deceitful.
Aisha, the wife.
I know. You guys are paid for your Lord.
My point.
No.
No. That got it from all of that.
Show the book to them.
All of that. Now, all of your claim that he got it from someone, he got it from someone else, and so on, is in your mind,
It's a chain of
not in
narration and the
the. It's
reference-
all in that document. In other words, this
goes
is.
to the chain of narration.
we can.
Do you want it?
I
You want
don't
to see
want
the
it from you,
narration?
sir. Please, if you take that away.
Sorry.
No, that's not the bin.
No.
What are you doing there?
It is allowed.
Oh, look at that.
The cleaner will come.
Oh, clean.
No, will come, yes.
So your job is to make it unclean, and someone will come and clean after you.
Brother, don't give me that.
That's
Brother, listen to me, brother. You're wasting your time, brother.
That's the Queen's park, my dear friend. That's a royal park. Please pick it up. Good.
Yes, I'll put it here.
Excuse me.
Hold on, brother.
No, brother.
Responsible.
I know him very well. We haven't
I
spoken many
know.
times. Do you mind, brother?
Brother, you got him.
Because
You
you,
got him.
I know this one. I know this one.
That's why he's asking me if I'm paid just today.
you're paid. I know that.
Yeah.
I know.
Your payment hasn't come through, my dear friend. Please go and check your direct debits, please.
No. Can you touch your Bible and say that you don't get paid for your expenses?
I can touch my Bible and say all sorts of things, but I
No,
don't
can you
care to.
pay? Do you pay for your expenses? No. Don't lie. Don't lie, Arul.
Stay away.
Please, look, enough distance, bro.
But the case is
Okay, enough distance.
Just
Can
like
you?
Jesus.
Don't be
Jesus said,
hypocrite.
Can you please let the young man come here?
No,
please?
it doesn't. You don't do.
Is that what you want him to do?
Get the behind
Listen
me.
to me.
Okay, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. He's using you
Can anyone
to
use
form
you?
an opinion.
Question.
Do you understand?
How old are you,
Okay,
Ibrahim?
go and talk to Hashim.
16 years old.
16 years old.
Underage. As underage. You are an
Underage. So he calls you underage.
Yeah,
You agree?
16.
In what regard
He's
are you
only
underage?
18. Is he
Are you
allowed?
allowed to use your brain?
Is he 18?
Ashamed of yourself.
What's of course?
But please tell him he calls you underage.
Is he
Are you
18?
what?
Are you
We're
funny?
not
Is he
talking
18?
about getting him married.
No,
my
no,
dear
is he
friend.
18?
Stay away.
No.
Are we talking about your marriage?
You are a hypocrite. You are a
Talking about your
hypocrite.
marriage.
Brother, when we
So obviously, in what regard is he saying you're underage?
They said they're underage. You see the number of videos.
Yeah, I see.
I see that. Brother, don't waste your time, brother. Come
16.
on.
Are you on your...
I'm just going to make this point and then... Because I don't have a lot of time.
Brother, come here, brother. Don't.
Fine, I will. I just want to...
No, he's a hypocrite. Brother, listen to me,
Ibrahim.
Brother, I just...
Listen you. He don't want to listen you.
This is the test of your belief statements, yeah? There is a particular religion, where people who are older than you would not let you think,
Paid worker.
would not let you defend after thinking. They won't let you do any of them. There is one such religion because
as a tool.
how old do you think he
don't
must
give
be?
him time.
40s, 50s?
But don't give him time.
I'm going to finish it.
Yeah, just finish it,
But the
brother.
best answer he has,
Wrap up, end this on a good note.
Yeah,
and I
Ibrahim.
don't have a lot of time anyway.
Ibrahim, the best answer he has for Christians' questions is to make people run away. That's the best answer he
No,
has.
brother, he's using you against me. Brother, can you move? Brother,
I would not use
Brother
that
Ibrahim.
Well, that's what he wants.
You see, he's
That's
using you
what he
against
wants.
me.
He wants you to
You want
leave.
to talk? Let's go,
I
brother.
don't think... Hold on. Hold on. Can I just...
Brother, you should listen to me.
Take a deep breath,
Yeah.
you walk off, leave it.
I will leave. I just want to wrap up.
He's
this.
slightly
I-
older
Brother,
than
what's
you,
the point of
perhaps.
wrapping up?
Still hasn't-
Brother, what's the point of wrapping it up?
Brother, I want to wrap
Are
up.
you-
Is he?
Because
Are you his brother?
I don't want to...
No, that's brother. Listen to me. He is not allowing you to convert.
You don't let
have
him
your
think.
own opinion.
You don't let him
He
think.
has
No,
come
you're
up with
asking him
preloaded
manipulative questions. You're asking
When
questions.
using you
Are
as
there
ammunition.
to make people think.
I know,
Do you not let him think?
No, the
What's the
question you're
point?
asking him, you're trying to
came to me, we
give-
have
no,
a
but
that's
for a
what I'm
minute,
saying.
go
Just
now,
leave it, brother.
And then grill him afterwards. That's
When
what you're trying to do.
this-
Excuse me,
this
my
is-
dear
One,
friend.
two, there's three of
I
you, and
come
then
up
there's
with
this
this.
guy in my
This is
ear.
hadith.
One,
You
and
should
three of
walk
you.
away.
You should
You should
feel
walk
really,
away.
proud of
Can I
yourself.
tell you something? Can I
Come to me. I'll talk to you once.
Amazing job.
I'm telling you as a brother. Come
In
here.
other words,
I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm not
can you let him be in peace?
no.
You're disturbing an
No,
underage person.
You are
like you claim.
You came.
Did you call him
young boy.
underage?
Yeah. You came.
Why are you forcing him to do something?
Missionaries.
Find
young boys to talk. Why don't you go and talk to Hashim or Mansur? Why did you pick him?
I've seen him talk
Don't
to
bring
Hashim.
Hashim. Don't bring Hashim and bring Shamsi as well. Come on, don't do.
not here. Please go and bring him here.
No, bring Shamsi. Muhammad Hijab, bring all of them. Let's see whose God is real. Let's see whose God is real.
Touch my ear.
Let's see whose God is real. Come on. Why you kiss a stone?
Brother.
Why you worship a stone?
Are you listening? Yes.
How can a stone talk?
Brother, do you know who these guys?
Why are you ignoring me?
Why are you afraid? Why are you afraid in him thinking? Why are you afraid?
These guys are
Thinkers. We think, we ask,
they believe
we let
3 in
people
1.
think.
They believe 3 in 1.
What's your problem?
When they believe 3 in 1, how can they be thinker? They're logically, rationally, mathematically. It does not make sense.
In our discussion so far, do you have reasons to think we are thinking and asking questions? Do you have reasons to think so?
Well, to be honest, I have seen you guys on YouTube, and I do kind of see a sort of bit of a pattern with you guys. I'll be honest.
What sort of pattern? A pattern where Muslims don't allow other Muslims to face questions. Is that the
Brother,
pattern you see?
you are not listening, brother.
I'm going to go play that.
His point is do not even
the
listen to a
shaitan
Christian.
channel. Do you understand? This is the shaitan channel. Do
Ah,
you understand?
all right. Can I? That's good.
He's a
His
deceiver.
blue color is now showing up. No,
You're a deceiver.
he calls JC Shaitan's
Shaitan channel, I said.
What's the definition of Satan's channel?
SC means shaitan channel.
What is the
That's my
definition
word.
of Satan?
I don't have to
Are you
answer to you.
calling Christians Satan?
No, I didn't say the Christian.
Why did you call him Satan?
I said SC channel means shaitan channel.
There are two O's in between.
I said
S-O-C-O.
SC channel.
Can you read
I
O's?
said- No, I didn't say that. I abbreviated.
Can you read
No,
O's?
listen. I
Why do you
abbreviated.
call him Shaitan
Choco
channel?
channel to SC channel. Shaitan channel.
Because he can't think.
I can say whatever I want. I did not say Christian or Shaitan. I did not say that. Don't put your words into my word into your mouth.
I didn't say you said that. I asked you, are you saying that?
My brother, how come you've been speaking for the last
Please,
half
brother.
an hour? My brother over here hasn't spoken at all.
Brother,
Really?
Yeah.
Did we not let him
I'm
speak?
standing here.
No, because I feel like you've been asking me the same question, and I don't feel like you like my answers. So you're kind of
Like, you've been
keep
speaking for the
asking me
last half an
to
hour,
try and get
and
the
I'm
answer
gonna
you want,
speak.
and that's a kind of an. I'm going to be
That's
honest.
we're not
That
really
is another pattern that I
We're
see.
not.
If you think
Brother,
that's a
we
fair
begin.
fair representation
I'm
of
going to make
No,
my
no, he
point,
didn't.
and then I'm going to ask you. So if I don't get an answer, I don't have a lot of time. It's almost full.
You guys should be ashamed
Right?
of yourself.
I'm going to.
Can he speak, please? Is that your brother?
No, of course you're brother.
Why don't you let him
All of you
speak,
are
please?
speaking.
All brothers here.
Go and tell the what's the channel.
In your family,
Brother.
do only the older brothers speak?
Are you converted? Brother, are you a scholar?
Speak back as well.
I'm not scholar.
So why?
Which is
you
exactly
are
what we're trying to do.
representing
You
something.
heard him take 2
Do you understand? I'm saying they come up with 1 week, 2 weeks of research
Go on.
on this
Funny, it's not
subject.
even funny.
They go home, research, and then come and talk.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Do you understand?
But we can have this debate next week. I'll be back next week. But I just want to wrap
Yeah,
up.
make your point, make your point. Yeah,
Make
we're keen to hear
Can I just wrap
it.
up?
We're keen to hear it if they give you a
I
chance
just want
to
to
hear.
wrap up. I just want to wrap up.
Okay, go for it.
Basically, okay, my point is this. If you're talking about, for example, which one would I trust more, I gave my answer that it depends who wrote them. Now, if you're saying I have my own way of verification, for example, I was going to give you the example. My way of verification would be if we're going to talk in those times, how we're going to, because receipts aren't really a thing. Everything was handwritten. Everything was written in a pen and other useful things. Right? We have tens of thousands of biographies of the Sahaba, of the Salaf al-Salihin, basically the people who, the Tabi'un, people who took from the Sahaba. We have their documents, okay, and they're here today, right? They're here today. I even have some at home, right? I even have some of their.
What is the earliest hadith source you have, and prior to that, what evidences have you got for the fact that hadiths existed?
Because
What is the earliest hadith source have you
I
got?
gave the, okay, fine. I'm going to make my point, and then I gave an example of
Brother, I'm
chains
going
of.
to make your last point.
You
He's continuing this.
I made my
You
last point,
understand?
and then
No,
we'll,
just walk away, brother.
Yeah, I will. Okay. So basically, chains of narration chains of narration
Watch the
are,
title
for
of the
example,
YouTube.
substantiated. Like obviously, when I give the
Quran is
example
this,
of
Quran
his
is
teacher,
without-
his teacher was a Sahaba of the
Substantiated.
Now we have biographies of tens of thousands of Sahabas, and like I said, the Salaf, right? We know who they were, we know their characteristics. They aren't made up people, right? So that would be my authentication. I would use chains of narrations and the biographies to find out who these people were. Also, in the science of hadith, we also have a criteria to be like, for example, you have to be a reliable narrator. You have to be reliable. You can't be someone who's known to lie. You have to, there's many characteristics, right? I could look into
That's a
that more.
catch-22. Yeah, go on.
I could look into that more, and I'll come talk to you next week. I promise I'll come.
That's good. Yeah, next week.
Right?
Okay.
And,
Next week.
and a question that I would ask: if you are not satisfied with biography, the chains of narrations with criteria and evidence, if that doesn't satisfy you, what I'm just this isn't a loaded question. I'm genuinely curious. What would intellectually satisfy you? What has intellectually satisfied you? That the Bible comes from the Bible that we know today comes from Jesus. I'm probably just going to wrap up this point and I'm going to go. Right?
So your question is this,
Right?
So if I could give you a quick answer, in regards to the history of Jesus,
Yes.
for the documentary, in regards to documentary evidence to establish the history of Jesus, based on the number of documents that we have, number of manuscripts,
Not a single eyewitness.
number of manuscripts,
Not a single eyewitness.
Okay, hold on.
That's the fact.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
It's
so
a well-attested rumors.
Hold on.
Well-attested rumors.
do you think he listens to anything
I
at
have-
all and
I
then
listen.
comes to judgment?
I don't want to give my opinion.
Brother, you said he
based
can make
on
your
what's
last
happening
point.
now, what do you
He
think?
will not let you go. You know why? He's gonna bring points after points. What I suggest, brother, go home, do research, and come and talk to him.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Brother,
He's I asked him the question about the Bible. He's going to answer this. I'm going to write. We go.
He doesn't
you're
even know
yapping
that
for
you
last 10
asked the
minutes.
question now.
I know. He's going to answer
Brother,
the question.
why?
We go.
Listen to
We
this,
go.
brother.
He doesn't even
This
know
guy
you
will
asked
not
the question now.
let you. He will continue because he's using you.
Yeah, he's going to answer the question, and I'm going to go after he answers this. I'm going to I'll wait for the answer.
The quick answer, my dear friend, is this. In regards to the documentary evidence for the life of Jesus,
Yes.
including the crucial elements of him doing signs and wonders, dying, being crucified, dying, being buried and coming back alive, what we find is based on the number of manuscripts, based on the dates of manuscripts, based on the languages in which manuscripts were originally written, Greek, plus the translations, based on all those things and based on the geographies from where we get those copies, what we can reasonably
And external sources.
reasonably and confidently conclude is that those documents that we have today would take the narration of Jesus all the way back to the first century. We don't depend on any oral source beyond that. Just the documentary evidence from, like how my brother rightly said, from historians outside of the Bible, Roman, Greek, Jewish, and so on. Plus the documentary evidence for the Bible, for the New Testament, in Greek and in at least 9 other foreign languages. And the number of copies, dates of those copies, and the job those copies were obtained would take the story all the way to the first century. No need for narration, chain, nothing of that sort. Jesus' time, we get the story from. That's it. Good to see you.
Okay.
Ibrahim.
Just, as I'm going, I would just say, okay, as far as I know, there aren't any manuscripts from the first century, and we don't really have any biographies or manuscripts.
Let's deal with that in detail. Let's deal with that in
No,
detail.
that's just my comment.
Comment here, but let's deal with that in detail after your research. Hopefully, at least next week, this fellow won't disturb you.
Yeah, I
from
will be
thinking.
here. I will be.
He didn't even listen even now.
I will be
said,
taking.
Did I say anything about him not being here? I said, hopefully he won't
Not
disturb,
intervene. That's
is what I said.
But
He
I
won't
like
even listen
to.
that
I
simple
will.
statement.
No, stop patronizing people.
As far as I know, the
Don't
oldest
stop
manuscript-
Not patronising, it's a condition
You're
he's asking.
no, it's not.
Information
I
about
know you guys.
No,
You're
you don't.
missionaries.
You don't know us.
You come
You
with
don't
the
know us,
lies.
mate.
You believe
You
three in
don't
one.
know us.
Yeah, I know very well.
You only know
You have been
bits. You know
dismantled. You have been
Tiny,
dismantled to the floor.
tiny amount.
To the floor.
You mean like a sheep?
Me.
Like a sheep.
You have been here for
Like
many months
Mansa.
now, so hopefully you can answer some of our questions. Because you have done all your preparation and come here.
So you know all your stuff. You know
No,
your
no,
stuff.
wait a second. You obviously assume him to have the capacity to answer next week. But you have been here many weeks, so I'm assuming you'd be able to answer some of our questions. Can you answer?
Can I answer?
Yep.
I will talk to hours and hours, not in the camera.
Why is that?
Why is
Because
that?
intelligent people don't talk in front of camera. This is
Intelligent people. No, please.
Don't
the,
talk
this
to
is the
camera.
difference. This between intelligent and
Doesn't mean-
deceiver.
No.
This is the difference between intelligent and deceiver.
I do
Because
not-
you guys are deceiver.
My dear friend, my dear friend,
Do you have a
I
debate?
do not.
Anytime.
One second. One second. I do not.
This is the Christianity. Why you are holding me?
Oh,
It's.
No, you can't do that.
It's a sign of
No,
friendship.
no friendship. You said I'm not your friend.
called
You don't
friendship.
know me. Why you
Did I
holding
say
me?
not my friend?
You said that.
No.
On the camera.
Question.
Arul, you are a liar. You are a liar.
Don't run. We really can't miss that pearl of wisdom there without going through that once more. Just, I'd like to remind you the exact statement he made. Intelligent people do not talk in front of the camera. That's the pearl of wisdom that came from that gentleman just a minute ago. And this is mysterious to me. How can you explain that? Intelligent people do not speak in front of
So
camera.
that means all the actors and celebrities of the world must be very
Not intelligent. All the
intelligent.
presidents of the world,
Yes.
prime ministers, whoever the camera points to is not
Oh
intelligent.
dear, we've got no hope, have we?
Okay, well, so unfortunately we didn't actually sort of finish the conversation which we began with the young man there, but what we were really trying to get on to was, of course, Ibrahim wanted to emphasize that he has oral tradition which goes back before the time of, in the case that he gave, Sahih Muslim. But the problem is, we Christians would be happy if there is a shred of evidence for an oral translation. But what he is showing as an evidence for transmission is just one single point in time, a document.
And
Now
just
that-
quoting names.
and quoting names that come from that document. In other words, all that he is giving evidence for is the fact that at a particular point in time, a claim that oral tradition was there was made. The claim was made, we agree with that. But the question is that claim substantiable? And that is where, unfortunately, the young man wasn't able to give evidence. But I really think, given the example that we gave of the receipts and the white sheet of paper, I really think he would have got the answer. And that is why I think he was trying to ask for more details, trying to say, add all sorts of caveats and stuff. So hopefully, the young man Ibrahim makes sense of some of the stuff that we
I
discussed
think one of the
about.
points we wanted to make was like, if you had bought an item and you lost your receipt and you wanted to get a refund, the company is not going to allow you to just write a piece of paper saying, oh yes, I bought this, and send it. But if we could provide a receipt of the purchase of when we bought the item, then of course we get a refund. That's what we're trying to make, because that's more valid.
In other words, for an oral transmission, the evidence we need are documents which can clearly be dated to different points in time, completely filling in the gap between. When I say completely, I mean reasonably having time points covered between the time of Muhammad and the time, in this case, Sahih Muslim. As long as he can show documents coming from those various time points, we can say, oh, that's a reasonable claim of oral transmission, which is also written down in this case. But without that, covering the different points in time, just showing one document which came later and saying there was a pre-existent oral transmission is just a claim, not an evidence. And that's the point we're trying to make. In regards to the Bible, thankfully, and I think this is where the providence of God comes in, thankfully, the fact of the matter is, based on the manuscriptal evidence that we have from the Bible, and like how Brother Ray was rightly reminding us, the manuscriptal evidence that we have for the extra biblical text, what we can reasonably confidently say is that the narration corresponding to the life of Jesus Christ can be traced all the way back to the 1st century, to the nation of Israel, in the exact context in which the narration is given in the Gospels. That can be traced back, and that is why the Bible is trustworthy, the Gospels are trustworthy, Jesus is solidly a historical person, including his death and resurrection, but that is not the case in regards to all the stories which have been passed on about Muhammad. Jesus is the man to follow. He is God who became a man.
Amen.
Muhammad
Amen. Amen.
I wouldn't bet even a penny based on his life story. That's what we need to do. Not to offend anyone. That's not the idea. But to make that point crystal clear. If anyone wants to bet their lives based on supposed claims without evidences, I would certainly comment to him, don't do that, please. Yeah, that's the. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.